Welcome back to Human Resource Management. My name is Professor John Watts. We are talking about the general introduction today, and if we do have time, we're going to be getting into human resource planning. You know that there's far better people to talk to than me. You can contact me with any of these details, but we have a whole teaching team, and we have many videos about the class activities already. Since I've already taught this class before, last year, for example, the videos of me teaching it, almost the same details are online, so you can watch that to review details or get ready to hopefully debate details or update details or educate me about details. For example, the definition of human resource management. We're going to be talking about that. The definition that I use here, it's from the textbook. I think it's pretty basic, but these are getting you guys started. And then the functions of human resource management, general requirements for certification related to it. And what I think that has changed, I've been talking about, is the increasing online usage of freelancing. So Linda Cheng, can you tell me, or your guess, what do you think freelancing means, or what is a freelancing website, or what is a freelancing job?
Maybe something independent.
Yes, it is something independent. Can you give me a few more words or sentences so other people have a better understanding of your guess? What do you mean independent?
It's an independent project of, I'm not really sure about the definition of freelancing. Sorry.
Great. What about Tobias Home?
Yes, I think freelancing is like where you just put out your skills on a platform, and companies can look for you and hire you for like one project, and you're not really their guy. You're just working for them and have an extra contract, like you're not really employed for them, and afterwards you can just go to another project for another company. So you're like a bit of a nomad.
Good. Yeah, it's definitely different words than I would use, but absolutely correct. I hope everybody understands what we were just saying. That's one of the most important things that I think is discussed in week 1 and week 2 of our course. And so hopefully you guys understand. It's not just companies managing things, but it's individual people. It's you guys. You can get jobs anywhere in the world because you're working online. And so since you could be a full-time employee of Samsung, but at the same time as you're working for Samsung, you could also have a side project, maybe for Apple, developing some sort of app. And you get the Apple contract just to do one project for Apple, and Apple pays you for that one project. And then you go back, if you don't want any more extra jobs, you go back to just focusing on your regular job at Samsung. And maybe you don't tell anybody at Samsung that you're working for Apple, but you could do that. And that concept is growing like crazy now. It's not just individual people that are able to get jobs in many companies around the world just to do individual projects, but what I hope you guys understand, even though this is just the learning objective, I'm big explanation of it. Companies are not saying it in newspapers. Companies are not saying it in CNN or the TV stories, but company executives and CEOs, what they are doing is they are slowly making plans to eliminate lifelong permanent jobs. And what they're liking more is to just hire people to do a project. Many people may have heard about Japan. Japan used to be famous for any person that gets hired in Japan, they get hired for the rest of their life, and their family, their kids are set for almost forever, because the company will never fire workers. That's the rumor, that's the gossip. In some ways, it's largely true, but they do try to do the Japanese style of firing somebody. If you really mess up at your job, if you're not good at your job, in Japan, they'll just move you to some job, I don't know, cleaning snow in the Siberia office, something like that. They will give you some job that you want to quit. That's how they get some people to quit jobs in HRM in Japan, for example. But increasingly those lifelong jobs are being replaced, and they're not offered anymore. They're just, the company is just showing short project jobs. They'll hire a contractor, they'll hire somebody to do one project at a time. And so why should we care? Why are we talking about it? You guys should know that although many of you might be focused on finding a lifelong job after you graduate or as soon as you can work for a big company, you should also be thinking of the world's changing and how you might want to start developing those project skills, the certification in some area so you can do one project. That's also related to outsourcing. If there's any questions, please let me know. Again, this is just the introduction topics, so I'll go through it quickly and try to get into the details within the people. Also, we'll be talking about challenges. Obviously, what I just said, those are big challenges to human resource managers. How do you manage not just Apple has many employees or Samsung has hundreds of thousands of employees? How do you manage hundreds of thousands of people? But if you're going to be hiring people just for short jobs, you're going to be maybe having millions of employees. That's obviously a huge challenge. And millions of employees in many different countries. That's another big challenge. And the idea of you're supposed to follow national laws of employment. Are you supposed to follow the law of employment in Samsung head office in Korea? What if the HR manager in Uzbekistan posts a job and hires somebody? Then where do they follow the laws? The laws in Uzbekistan are different than the laws in Korea. So those are more challenges. We'll be looking at that. All of those things could be research topics for you guys. Then we're going to be talking about overall the outlining potential challenges and contributions that a diverse workforce presents. Diversity, working with other people, the whole concept of Black Lives Matter. Well, some people say, what about white lives matter? What about Asian lives matter? What about African white lives matter? You know, because some people are from many different areas. So we'll be talking about that. Explain how human resource managers can affect organizational performance. Summarize guidelines to follow when communicating with different programs, especially the software programs and the HRM programs. Summarizing the types of assistance that HRM departments provides overall. So the definition, human resource management, those are activities designed to provide for and coordinate human resources of an organization. In the past, it was talking about personnel management or personnel administration. It's pretty straightforward. I assume everybody understands it. But now you manage it according to the base country laws, or if you realize that, for example, United States and Canada have many rules and regulations, more regulations than some other countries. So some companies might not like to worry about following so many rules. So if they have a branch office in a small country that doesn't have as developed rules or laws, is that okay? You may have heard that a lot of the world's biggest companies have a base office in the Cayman Islands or in the Seychelles. Anybody know why Cayman Islands or Seychelles or Bahamas, in some reasons even Switzerland, why those are popular countries?
I think.
Good, thank you for thinking.
Yeah, I didn't know whether my voice is.
Yes, we can hear you. Can
Okay,
you
I think
add?
there is less regulation through taxes, so big companies can avoid from big taxes. That's why they choose this island.
Oh yes, so some companies, they want to avoid taxes, so they register the company in some small tropical island like the Seychelles or Cayman Islands. Cayman Islands is a small island close to Cuba. And if they say that that's where the head office is, that place doesn't have as many laws, rules, regulations, and it's not as developed as United States or Canada or France and Germany, some people say. So do you have to follow those laws if you're hiring somebody just on the internet? So far, legally, people have been saying wherever the job was posted from. So the IP address of the HR manager, wherever that computer is based, that's where the laws should be followed from. But then people can argue what? How can you argue? Well, that's not true. It shouldn't be that way. Bastien, Guillaume, Mr. Moon, would you like to guess why? How could you argue that? If you have to manage laws for HRM and you understand companies are saying we're going to work in a place around Cuba because it has lower taxes, less laws, easier to follow things. But somebody starts having legal fights and they say that we're going to follow just the IP address of where that job ad was placed. What could be a problem with that? How could you argue that? Hint, hint, coronavirus. It's happening during the pandemic, 2020. 2021 is the IP address, is the place where the job ad was posted connected to the company all the time? Are you working inside the building?
Because the person who's posting that advertisement could be working in a different places around the world.
Absolutely. So companies used to just work inside one building, inside one city. They may have a head office in a tropical island, but they still work inside one city. And so people were saying legally, if you go to court, that we're going to follow the job ad because the job ad was posted from this building inside the city. So they are responsible. But the HR manager, because of coronavirus, is not allowed in that building. Maybe they're not allowed in that city. And so they could be on a beach like I was on a beach for many years in Vietnam. So should we be following the laws of Vietnam, even though the company that I was actually working for when I went to Vietnam, they don't have any campus. They don't have any buildings in Vietnam. It was just me. So there's lots of things to start thinking about. And with human resource management, it's not just the human resources you're supposed to be managing, it's also the whole idea of the company. Corporation is considered a legal person. It's almost like saying a corporation or a company is a robot that has human characteristics. They are able to vote. They are able to get passports. They are able to invest and pay money just as the corporation, not as a different human being. So it makes interesting things because the human resource management is supposed to develop all people, but also develop the company at the same time. So the definition, it's basic, but there's lots to think about. So what are the functions of human resources? Obviously, the tasks, duties that human resource managers perform, but there's lots. Determine the organization's human resource needs. As I just gave, there are lots of different needs. It's not just straightforward, find somebody to work on this assembly line and this factory machine, find a manager to do it, find some directors to sit in a nice office to manage that, and the marketing, things like that. There's lots to go through. And of course, the recruiting, selecting, developing, counseling, and rewarding employees that we will be starting to talk about very soon. Hopefully, you guys are aware of that freelancing and outsourcing aspects. And human resources also has a function related to the liaison between the unions and government organizations, or the unions and the management. Sometimes unions are very, very different than the actual company management, right? Usually, people can argue, whether it's true or not, that the executive management of the company wants to make as much money as possible and cut as much costs as possible. So they don't want to pay sometimes very high salaries so they can have lots of profit. So the CEO gets lots of profit, or the shareholders gets lots of profit. And then the union is representing usually the workers. So the union would be arguing with the management, but it's also with the government. And now if we start expanding that concept here in Korea, Korea is famous with the unions. Korea has some of the most violent, most active unions in the world, more active than other places. Maybe you're aware of Al Capone movies and old movies like that. Some of the biggest gangsters ever were the actual United Auto Workers Union in the United States. All people related to transportation and delivery, logistics in some ways. They were forced to join this union sometimes, or they would be beat up or sometimes killed. And then those union people would actually control cities and the mayors and the governments, because if they didn't get what they want, all of these trucks would stop on the highways and stop everything going in and out of those cities. They used to have superpower. And even though that's the American thing that's in lots of movies, Korean unions are famous for being more aggressive. So please be aware of that and talk about it. Things have changed a lot, though. I'm not saying bad about Korea. I'm not saying bad about the United States. I'm just saying keep that in mind. How you handle matters of employee well-being and all of these different aspects with human resources. I'd like to hear from you guys what you find is important. So here's a table showing many different activities that we do. The planning, recruitment, selection, the idea of conducting job analysis to establish the specific requirements and individual jobs within the organization, forecasting the needs. When are we going to hire more people? Obviously, right now, these are going crazy. These first 2 points alone are going crazy because companies had to slow down with coronavirus. And now in Canada, they're starting to act like coronavirus never existed. And so companies are trying to hire to get back up to their regular speed. And they're seeing that young workers, millennials, the Generation Z, they are saying that they don't want these old jobs in a building. They like the idea of working from the beach. They like the idea of freelancing. They like the idea of being able to control their own schedule and job and income and things like that. So people are not taking jobs like they used to in the past. So that's big. You need to start thinking about that stuff. How will you do it? What is important? Have you guys started to think about that? Could we get, I don't know, a show of hands, or you guys each just say yes, 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 or no, no, no? How many of you actually have a resume and have applied for a job already? I definitely have. I can't see your faces. I can see Moon. Moon, have you applied for a job before? You have a resume ready?
Apply for a part-time job, but not as a like.
Okay.
No.
Great. I see Bastin, you have your hand up. Great. Lucas Matthias, you have your hand up. Great. Guillaume Lecar, I don't see from you. Is it, it looks like about a third of the class, 5 hands up, 6 hands up and 1 thumbs up. Okay. So little less than half of our class. So half of our class have a resume. And I guess that half of the class doesn't have a resume or a CV. If you guys like, I would feel guilty if we finished a course and anybody in our course didn't understand what are the best ways to make a resume. So how about you guys gamble together? Who do you think has the most experience with a resume in your class? Which student, can you put your hands up again? Which student do you think has more than 2 years of working or 2 big job applications? Can I see your hands up? Only Zephyr? Nobody else in class has applied to more than 2 jobs? So Zephyr wins? Okay, that was easy. The idea is, if Zephyr, you're the expert, do you know how to use keywords or the importance of keywords for your resume?
I make my resume in French, so I don't know the English keyword.
Very individual important words, meta tags. It is not just an English word.
Okay.
It's an international word related to programming is a big hint, or connection to the internet.
I don't know.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody? Does anybody know what keywords are related to making videos, viral videos, or making company websites, or making new essays? Anybody?
I think like if you read a job offer, you should try that your CV has the same keywords like hardworking, etc. in your resume. For example, if you go to a LinkedIn or something, they can find you more easily, and then they think it's the way it should be.
Absolutely. Most people in the world, they're still walking around like we're kind of hunters, gatherers, cavemen. They're not actually working using the newest technologies. You know there are technologies, you know there are games out there, you know that there's videos and the internet, but you don't work with the internet. For example, most people just know, okay, these are my skills. I write it on a piece of paper and I mail it to a company, and that's it. But as we just heard, was that Bastian that was just saying it? Somebody was just saying it. That's not wise. You should understand almost everything in life now is controlled through the internet. They're controlled through software programs. So companies, when they're looking to recruit people or looking for resumes, they can post an advertisement that might have been made 5 years ago. If it's the same job, they're just hiring a new person for. They just press a button, that ad goes up, it's done. But for example, I used to be an executive in a company. We posted an ad. Maybe you guys know of the cell phone company BlackBerry. Obviously, everybody knows of Apple, you know of Samsung, you know of Xiaomi, some Chinese cell phone companies, or Nokia. Well, there was a very famous cell phone company in Canada called, I just forgot the name of it. I think I just said it, didn't I? Oh my God, the
BlackBerry.
BlackBerry,
Yes.
yes. Oh my God, thank you. Anyway, BlackBerry, when we were working for them, we posted a job on a Friday afternoon. And we were looking for like an assistant to help the manager of some department. And on Monday morning, how many job applications or how many resumes do you think we had for BlackBerry? It actually, the company is not called BlackBerry. The company is called RIM, Research in Motion. But it's really, BlackBerry is the phone, the product they made, and that's famous. So how many resumes do you think the company had just from Friday night to Monday morning? Any guess?
5,000.
5,000. Good guess. Keep going higher.
10,000?
Keep going much higher. More than
1
3
million?
100,000.
1 million?
we had about 30,000 resumes on Monday morning. Basically, just Saturday, Sunday, and then 30,000 resumes were submitted. So there's not really any people or any friends I know that can read 30,000 resumes, even if they're only one page. My resume, I think it's 40 pages? Is that right, Hua? 40 page for my resume. If we had 30,000 people with 40-page resumes, there's no way you could read all of that. So work with it, live with it, understand that a person, even the great person in HRM, you can't manage that by yourself. You have to work with technology. You have to work with programs, and those programs will scan thousands of resumes in seconds. And so know that those programs will look for those keywords from the job ad and see which resumes have the most keywords, and whatever resume has the most keywords, that resume is at the top of the list. You are the first one they're going to look at. And if a resume doesn't have any keywords, for example, it's a photo of your resume, or you've done some new great design where the words are very artistically created, if the program can't see your skills or those keywords they're looking for, you can't get those jobs. So be aware, number one, find out what the company is looking for. What are the keywords? And they're usually in the job ad. It's better if you do more research to find out the person that was working there before, what were they good at? What do they say in their resume? And design your resume to have those same valuable keywords. Hopefully that's clear. Another topic that's related, that's more valuable, that people talk about less, except in HR, is key skills. So some people are starting to look at key certification. Do you have the skills that we're looking for? So make sure everyone in our class knows your resume must have keywords that are desired by the company you want to work for. Not just once in your resume, but as many times as you can. And use synonyms. For example, if it says manage, they're looking for manager of something, you can write manager or leader or directed or supervisor. All of those are words that the software programs would identify relating to the job. The more you have them, the better your resume is identified. More valuable, a second topic, you must also have those key skills in there. Why am I talking about this? I think we should use some time this week, or especially when we're talking about selecting employees, for you guys to start making your resume and share it with somebody in class so that you can get other people to identify you have these keywords, or this looks good, or that doesn't look good. Because it's not important what's in your mind. It's important what the other people, potential hiring managers, might have in their mind, and what might be in a computer program. So all of those things related to recruiting and selecting, hiring courses, those are very important too. And then that's just part of the planning, recruitment, and selection. You must also understand that human resource management or personnel management, it's also the main focus is to develop you, not just to hire you, but once you're in, they're supposed to stay in contact with you and make sure you are developing so the company is developing. How can we orient you? How can we train you, not just at the beginning of your job, but ongoing, the best HRM. Bad companies, they don't train you at all. But middle level companies, they might give you a training program or a book that you need to know, as soon as you start, but then they stop doing anything. I have worked with some of the best companies in the world, and one thing that is kind of special about almost every one of the top companies in the world is they have something like a university inside the company. So they'll have not just an HR office, people might not even know that this website or this room, this meeting area that has many different books, many different certificate programs, many different training sources of information the company will give to the workers, because the more you know, the better the company can do. And so Apple, and when I was working with Samsung, they had that. And Applied Materials is even a bigger, more high-tech company than Samsung. Samsung had a university, Samsung University. Well, so did Applied Materials. Applied Materials had something like a university in each of the major countries they worked. They had spent more than $1 billion just in human resource development in Beijing. And that's not hiring people. That's not managing or planning. That's talking about developing the existing employees. It's really interesting. So designing those programs, organizational development programs, building effective teams, and the structure, the whole idea of, in some countries, everybody's equal. So there's no superior. It's very different than in other countries, like in Korea. You clearly have somebody higher level, you have a superior to you, a manager over top of you. And so you need to go through them. But in other countries, it's okay to go around and talk directly to the president, or go around and talk directly to the vice president of finance or operations or planning or engineering, if you have an issue related to that. In other countries, you have to go direct. So that whole idea of the organizational development, all of that is generally managed by human resources, building these systems. Most companies are now using software, something like an MIS or an ERP program. Zachary, do you know what an ERP program is?
No, to be honest, no.
Good, thanks. An ERP is basically a giant Excel file, Microsoft Excel file on steroids. It's like the Godzilla of Microsoft Excel. It has all information, employee resource planning information, everything related to the employees, everything related to work, everything related to how much they're getting paid, where the work, maybe they're making a pop can, and does that person, is he starting with the aluminum? Has he rolled the aluminum? Has he made the can? Is he starting to put a label on the can? All of those details of where the work is with the employee, all of that information it's basically the same thing as an MIS, Management Information Systems software program. They're usually $3 million programs, or sometimes more, just employee resource planning or MIS programs. All of those are related to the systems that control people. It's not just the old-fashioned one person talking to another. And then, of course, compensation and benefits. Is compensation, I've talked about changes in all of these things. I've taken way too much time. Has compensation changed? Have benefits changed? Or are they still basically the same, just going up, getting a little bit more valuable each year? Do you guys identify, have companies changed compensation or benefits?
Yes, I would say a lot of people care more about like free time or maybe holiday homes that they can go to. So I think it's changed from only money to like more benefits and social life, or like more holidays, something like that.
Absolutely. Everything you just said is absolutely correct. And a lot of the millennials and Gen Z, they also want a job, their first time job, the first ever time they've ever been working. When they've surveyed thousands of millennial young workers, they're saying they only want to take a job where they can make an impact on the world. Well, I don't know, maybe I'm a strange caveman or dinosaur, but my first job was doing a shit job just to get any money. And it wasn't a complicated job. It was basically sweeping the ground, the parking lot of a gas station. And after I got a promotion, then I was just pumping gas, or delivering newspapers when I was like really young. I don't know, 8 years old, 9 years old. So those type of low-level jobs were, in my generation, considered normal. Anybody that starts with a company, you have to start with the lowest level responsibility. You're not making decisions that are going to change the world, because you need to learn the details. But a lot of people nowadays, the millennial generation, Gen Z, they're saying they don't want those jobs. They want a job where they can actually start impacting society, or the carbon heating or global warming, or something like that. So be aware of, there are changes going on. Activities of the major human resource function: safety, health, employee, labor relations, resource research. I talked to you earlier about the idea of labor relations, unions. Some big companies don't like people that are talking a lot in Facebook or LinkedIn about developing unions or developing Black Lives Matters protests, Black Lives Matters issues. Why? Because, again, a lot of management, not all, but a lot of management, they just want to focus on making profit for the company. And if they're giving a lot more benefits to people, that means they're going to have a lot less profit. And so some companies have been assigned, even if it's illegal, some companies have been assigned to check for those. If they do have those type of people, we need to avoid them. Be aware of that. I think it's great to be a specialist in this, but it's something to be aware of. No matter what we're doing in our class, you need to do a research project. You should develop something. I think it's best if you publish it and present it online, make a video and share that internationally. Use this stuff thinking forward for your future. Next, who performs these details? Of course, the operating manager, the human resource generalist, the human resource specialist, of course, but almost everybody. Almost all managers are, of course, supposed to be checking their department is adding value to the company. If somebody in their department is not adding value, they're let go. If they're not showing results, they're usually let go. The company usually just checks results. If you can't show results, or somebody else shows more results than you, that person gets the bonus, you don't. Or that person gets to keep the jobs if coronavirus forces the company to cut costs, and you get let go, you get fired. Be aware of that. You can't continue to think and act and operate in the old-fashioned way of just spending hours and hours and hours online reading the training manual or slowly checking what customers are saying. You need to show your boss, show the company, show human resource management. You found this many customers are being followed now, or the number of followers for our company is dropping, or the number of staff that are starting to say good things is increasing, or the number of staff saying bad things is increasing. Start showing details so that you have something to show you've added to the value. And having a research paper usually helps. So consider that when you're making your research project for class. Certification. Many of you know about human resource certification. Probably every one of you have heard of CPA, certified professional accountant, or chartered accountant, or certified management accountant, certified financial accountant, certified, there's many different certifications of accounting. But have you heard of certification for HR? Anybody?
I mean,
No?
I study
No.
management with the main point HR. So I would say like my degree at the end is kind of a certificate, but I never heard of them, like the PHR or SPHR.
A degree can be considered a certificate, but why am I talking about this? Why should you care? Even this university, Kenyon University, what does the university want to develop? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the university wanted to develop as many different degrees as possible. They were basically selling degrees. I worked for one of the most luxurious universities in Vietnam. It's an Australian university. I'm not going to say the name because I might get in trouble, but that luxury Australian university in Vietnam, they don't charge per course. If you want to get in, you get in by paying $30,000 for the degree. If you take 2 years to finish all of the classes and get the degree, it's still $30,000. If you take 10 years to study and get your degree, you still only pay $30,000. If you want to get an extra minor, that can be extra. If you want to get an extra certification, that can be extra. But in the past, companies sold degrees. Usually they sell it by year. Year one, you pay part of it. Year two, you pay part of it. Year three, etc. But that's changing. As I said, Daegu City in Korea is one of the most traditional cities in Korea, maybe the world. Some people say the world. I'm not going to say it, but some people say that. So why should we care? This university is not really promoting degrees as much as they're promoting certifications. When I went through university many years ago, I never thought that there were certifications you could get other than for accounting. Now, universities are saying if a professor can't give a certification, they're not going to keep you. They're going to take your videos, they're going to put your videos online, they're going to have your videos issued through an online course like Udemy or Udacity or Coursera, and then anybody that pays to watch that video to get a certificate in just that class, that website like Udemy or Coursera, they take half the money and the university takes the half of the money, but the professor is let go. So be aware, certifications are growing. Companies just want somebody that is certified to manage this equipment or certified to manage this job. Why? It matches that whole idea of outsourcing. They just want to focus on getting projects and results done, not hiring somebody for the next 30, 40, 50 years. So keep that in mind. Here are some examples. A professional in human resources, PHR, senior professional or global professional in HR. These are examples. You can get some of these for free already online if you wanted to check into them. Human resource department, primary function, provides support to operating managers in all matters, acts as an advisor for the managers and advisor for the staff, for the workers. It's split between the operating managers and the human resource department, depending on the organization. An effective HR department will continually develop good relations between the managers and the staff. Some of the best HR people I've ever met were MBA students that were working in HR already, and inside the MBA class, those MBA students were developing research projects just like you need to do, but they were developing advanced versions of the Briggs-Myers test applications, or the MBTI applications, or the Jung typology test applications. Anybody know what the Jung typology test or Myers-Briggs typology indicators or humanmetrics.com, anybody know what those things are? I associate them with the best HR management people I've ever met. If you understand those terms that I've just said and continue to follow up and daily or weekly learn a little bit more about MBTI or Jung typology tests, you will be amazing. So what those things are, they're all basically the same thing. As I think I talked about it earlier, you know of Sigmund Freud. Well, at the same time as Sigmund Freud, there was a different researcher called Carl Jung. He researched personalities and characteristics of people. How not only were there different personalities, but there's different characteristics. And these characteristics usually match jobs. And so he identifies people, how they have a different personality. And once we identify your character, your code for your character, your personality, we can identify from history, every job basically in the world, what characteristics you, like a salesman must be like an extrovert. They must like talking. Surprisingly, even though my job is talking, I'm more of an introvert. But a salesman should be very bubbly. They should like meeting people. They should like sort of partying or talking sports or meeting new people. That's an extrovert thing. Those are characteristics of a good salesperson. If you just like reading, that's probably not the best characteristic for a salesman. So that is just an example of what good HR managers look at. They identify the individual personalities and characteristics of people, the characteristics required in a job, the characteristics of managers and the characteristics of workers, and they try to make sure they match well. And if you get into even more detail, that MBTI or humanmetrics.com is a great website, or 16personalities.com is a good website talking about them. Each of those not only identify personalities and characteristics, but they also, did you know that each person has a different way of learning? Some people learn visually. Some people learn mostly just from experience. Some people learn by teaching somebody else. Some people learn just by reading. There's different learning styles. There's different communication styles. So the best HR management that I've ever learned specialized in those. It was amazing how they could walk up to, for example, the most challenging student in class and almost make that person feel like they were best friends almost immediately. Can you do that? Are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared to go into an interview and get that interviewer to feel like you're best friends for the last 10 years? Because if you can, you're going to get the job. That's a core part of human relations, human resource management and development. I'm talking too fast. Didn't I say that there's a few students, or every student is supposed to talk and tell me some of your ideas, or ask questions, or apply this to you? I definitely invite you guys to contact me, to talk up in class. Even email me or contact us. I've seen most people in our class have registered their Cacao Talk. So I have my Cacao Talk too. You can set up class groups. I've set up a class Facebook group to be talking about this stuff. So start asking advice. Of course, that's easy to understand. But what I want more is you guys to start sharing advice. Start sharing links in the Zoom chat, and more importantly, start sharing files that you find in our Facebook group. But understand, as a human resource manager, if you respect an author created something, then you're not allowed to take that and just give it to other people for free. That's theft. You need to make sure that you protect the intellectual property, the IP. And so if you're doing research with other people, you can share a folder to do research together. So you can share the link that may have several different articles. But if you share a full book or a article in Facebook, Facebook will very quickly ban you now, because Facebook is developing their HR management policies too. You're not allowed to say bad things, and you're not allowed to say racial inflammatory things, but you're also not allowed to do this IP theft. So share a link and start learning together. The sooner you guys start sharing that stuff, the sooner you guys get extra points for that. 3 types of assistance provided by HRM. Of course, there's the advice, coordination, specific services. It goes between the operating manager and the human resource department, and of course with the staff. That should be pretty clear. Challenges, diversity, working with Black Lives Matter, Asian Lives Matter. Is your department international? Because if it's not international, it's going to be closed-minded to just your small, limited group of people. If you have people from other cultures, other groups, you have bigger ideas, more ideas. More ideas means better, more creative ideas. So diversity is usually good. However, while regulations and laws, regulatory changes, there's more laws to ensure diversity almost everywhere in the world. That idea of diversity and extra laws is also creating more problems, the structural changes. You need a bigger legal department too. And staff are learning this stuff too. So be aware of this. And of course, the technical and managerial changes with your organization. Definitely try to remember all of this management and technology. In my experience, the legalities, for example, almost nobody can win. Anyway, we won't get into that unless you guys have challenges. Let's talk about diversity in detail. Organizations should begin to integrate diverse people. Clear. Growing numbers of women in the workforce are going to affect organizational policies. What about immigrant employees? What about online employees that are coming from across the world? They're going to have different educational, language, cultural differences. How do you manage that? Older workforces will be more experienced, but usually they're more expensive. Usually they're also more reliable and stable, but they might not adapt as well to these new changes. Working online, Zooming, FaceTiming with somebody on the other side of the planet. So are companies letting them go? Can anybody think what are most companies doing? If you're trying to cut costs and you know the older workforce is most expensive and experienced, reliable, etc., but they have these small problems, how can you work with it? A lot of companies are starting to make the older people mentors and advisors to the new people. So while they're getting into semi-retirement, they don't have to work in the office as much, but they have to overshadow and continue to be like a big brother or big sister to the younger employees to teach them about the network in the industry, or the network of suppliers, or the network of the union members, or the workers that are involved with the company. Those type of things are important. Have you guys seen this? Ideally, you guys see these PPT before we talk about it in class, and we can actually talk about these details in class. So there are different views related to it. The idea of diversity is important, and it's not just Black Lives Matter. Yes, Black Lives Matter, but White Lives Matter also. And some people would laugh at that and get very angry about that. But can you think how white lives might have problems knowing that we are all in Korea And some people talk about bananas, some people talk about Oreos, some people talk about, white cracker or whatever's good words or bad words. There are minorities everywhere in the world that have problems. Here in Korea, I, as a white person, am a minority. Some people don't cry because usually the white man has the most luxury and the benefits, but there is a lot of problems related to that, and it's everywhere in the world. Management of HR is supposed to be aware of that. How do you treat that? Are you supposed to hire more Black in Korea since there's 98, 99% just Korean here? If you do get hired as a minority to try to be make the company look more international, or even if the company is trying to be more international, are you actually comfortable talking about things in your way, or do you usually just follow that crowd? If you see the company usually does things a certain way and you do things a different way because your country does things a different way, maybe the management of the company would think, well, we have 98% Koreans, we need to do it this way. If you're not doing it this way, you're going to be let go. So there's a lot to this idea of diversity. Being aware of it is important. Have any of you guys experienced diversity issues? What about Mr. Moon? Jung Moon, have you experienced diversity issues?
Diversity issue I experienced when I went to America for the first time in my life.
Mhm.
In Korea, when we say hello to each other, we just say hello. But when I went to Texas for the first time, they were hugging every time when they were greeting. So I felt really weird when I was hugging a girl who has a boyfriend.
Oh,
I didn't know what to do,
wow.
but they were
You better
really
get your
nice.
knife out, get your gun out.
Yeah, but
I'm a terrible, terrible teacher.
and I experienced the diversity from that experience.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. I am from North America. I would be very hesitant to hug people anywhere in the world, even though I know my family is part French, and French culture, usually you kiss people on the cheeks. I am hesitant to do that in the public. Why? I am North American person, but I'm a professor and my wife is Korean. Even though my wife is older than I am, she looks like a university student. My wife is in her 50s, but she looks like a university student. And so I am really worried walking around the university with my wife, especially holding hands or hugging, because people are going to, that professor is dating a student. Terrible. And seriously, it has happened before. So I avoid it now. In Texas, wow, I'd be very worried about my safety. Good. How did you manage that? Did you just go ahead and copy what other people did and hug other people around you?
Yeah, at the first moment I didn't know what to do, but more they hugged me, I got kind of comfortable and I felt good as well. So I started to hug again. But after 3 years living there, I came back to Korea without any conscious. I hugged my best friend and he felt really weird. And I was like, what are you doing? And then I said, oh, this is different. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, the class is finished. We talk a little bit more about regulatory changes, technical changes. Very soon, we just get into the questions, but we've already started that today. Next class, we will be getting mostly into the week 2, which is the textbook chapter 5 topic, and we will be talking about many other aspects. Thank you very much.